Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Bold You. Now, this show was developed to help you and your loved ones, your girlfriends, your husbands, your spouses, all the people that are important to you to play bigger in your life, to be bolder so you can become the best version of you. I believe that we live in a world where there is a war between good and evil, and the only way evil wins is when good people like us don't do enough. And each week we have incredible guests that are people that are striving, that are living their lives as an example. They're not perfect, none of us are. Perfection is not even an expectation, progress is. Our guests are going to share from their heart, from their soul, from their experiences, their ups and downs, and really what they're working to make this world a better place and what they're doing. So this week, I'm so super excited because we have got an incredible guest, Mrs. Pat Alva-Kraker. I think that is a beautiful, beautiful picture, but I'm telling you, it does nothing to how beautiful you are, Pat, as a person, inside and out. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. How fun.
I know. I told her, I said, listen, we're just going to have fun.
Yeah, we are.
That's all we're going to do is we're just going to have a good time.
Yeah.
But before we jump into really your specialty and just all the incredible things you do, tell everybody who you are and where you grew up and just anything you want to share with everybody.
Oh, wow. Well, I must share that I am El Paso strong.
El Paso strong. Man, what a tragedy that was.
Yes. And El Paso is a very strong community, full of love, and we will rise above the situation. So I was born and raised in El Paso. Grew up there, went to school there, and really embraced my culture. I'm bilingual. Mm-hmm. And I ended up moving to El Paso, from El Paso to Dallas in 1980 when IBM gave me an opportunity.
So is that where,
up.
so you were in El Paso. Mm-hmm. I've got a really, really good friend of mine that lives in El Paso. And you know, I'm gonna tell you, I was completely out of it that day. I didn't even know that had happened. And then I started looking and seeing on Facebook about the tragedy, which to me is one of the really cool things about social media is you can have your head down in the books, you can be doing all that you're doing, but then you immediately hear about things that are happening and you can connect with people. Mm-hmm. And El Paso is an incredible community. It's an incredible community, and it's been one of those areas where they've had a very safe environment for so long, and it's going to continue to be safe. This is just a tragedy, a bump in the road. But when you left El Paso, did you leave for IBM, or did you go to school outside of El Paso?
Interesting question. Uh-huh. I left El Paso when IBM gave me the opportunity.
And did you go to college in El Paso?
And I went to UTEP.
Okay, so you were
I'm
there.
a minor. Go Miners!
Woo! Exactly.
So yes, for 25 years I stayed in El Paso,
and then
so making that jump was a big jump.
And were you scared at all?
I was freaking scared. Yes, because I was going to a place where I didn't know anybody.
Right. And you know what? See, that's what I think is so important. I think it's important for people, people meet you, and I met Pat. She's incredible. She's such a good person. And I met you through eWoman Network.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times when people meet you, for good reason, they know you've got your stuff together. Mm-hmm. They know you're successful. They know you're committed. They know you're dedicated. But a lot of times people will judge themselves and say, well, gosh, I'm not as together as she is. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that we share, you know what? You had to be big. You had to be bold. Step out of your comfort zone. Go to a totally different city that is quite a bit larger than El Paso, so you could do bigger things.
Yes.
And when you got here, kind of share with us what that experience was like.
When I got here, let me tell you, what I would do on the weekends is I would get in my car and drive down the main streets in Dallas.
And just
I would go down
look around.
Midway, go
Right,
down
right.
Josie, and just start acquainting myself with the city, and I began to join organizations so that I could start broadening.
That's so
it's so key.
important. It's so important to do that.
Create the community.
Right. So you started to join organizations. You were with IBM, and what did you do there with IBM?
With IBM, I was a systems engineer and a technical project manager.
Right.
For 22 years.
That's amazing.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Until I got laid off.
And so,
And then,
what was that story about? What was that story like? Because here you are, you've done something for 22 years. Did you think that you were going to just end up doing that for the rest of your career?
yes.
Yes. See?
At that time, the culture was that
Right.
you joined IBM and you stayed with IBM until you retired.
Right.
And life happens. You know, we have these assumptions of how life is going to be, and the next thing you know, there's a different plan for us. And after 22 years, it was hurtful.
Wasn't it?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
very hurtful.
And did they just lay you off because they were in hard times?
Well, at that time, IBM started to restructure, and I was part of 1,500 people that got laid off. So
Well,
it
that's
was
got to make you
major.
feel a little bit better.
Yeah. But you know what is interesting is that when something like that happens, it's easy to take that personally.
Personally,
like, oh my
100%.
God, you know, my self-esteem was on the floor.
Right.
They don't value me. I don't have anything to give to the organization. And that's where you just have to pick up you have to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and say, you know, I am stronger than this. And there is a reason that this happened in my life. And you look at the other side of it and say, okay, that was then, this is now, and we move forward from that point.
Right. You know what? I love that. I love that because it was listening to you. To me, it sounds like a dialogue that you had in your head. And let me tell you what, I've been through some hard times myself. I mean, I was a single mom for a little bit. And when I was a single mom, there was actually a Christmas when I had $12 in my account on Christmas Eve. And I kept driving by the ATM machine. And that whole entire day, I would say to myself, it's not always going to be like this. It's not always going to be like this. And it's that self-dialogue that we have in our head that gets us through those difficult times. Because it's not if we're going to have them, it's just when. So what I want to know, because I think this is important, what I want to know is what prepared you to have that type of positive self-dialogue in your head?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. For me, I've always had the belief that life happens for you, not to you. Life happens for you, not to you. And when I live my life from that philosophy, then everything is for the benefit. Everything is for my good, and everything is for your good. It's for our highest good.
That's right. And what I love about that too is that totally turns your mindset to think about, I have to be grateful for all things. I have to be grateful for all things. I have to be grateful for all things, because there is a lesson and there's a message, and there's a learning opportunity for every obstacle and hard time that we go through.
Yes.
And that's what, for me, I just feel blessed and fortunate that my father, he was a competitive athlete, and he just poured this, which is personal development. Yes. He just poured it in me. But were you in an environment where that was, poured into you as well? Or did you seek it out, or did you surround yourself with people?
I came from a home where I had a really strong mom. And my mom, with my mom, everything was possible. So I grew up with the philosophy that everything is possible. And we just have to believe in ourselves and keep going and look at the positive side of things. And I've always been a person, I'm a reader.
Right.
You and I agree that
right,
leaders
exactly.
are readers.
Yeah.
And so I would say that Zig Ziglar was my mentor, because I read all
Yes.
his stuff,
Yes.
and devoted to really growing myself personally.
Well, okay, so since we're talking about reading, one of the things that we talked about before, I read all the time. I know, Pat, I know you read all the time,
Yes.
and leaders truly are readers. And one of the things that I do, I facilitate a mastermind because you can't succeed alone, and that's by design. So don't beat yourself up. I know you do a mastermind as well, or you're
Yes.
involved. But each month we read a book, and this month we're reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's amazing. And one of the things that I do for each of our shows is there's just a little nugget that I like to share with everybody, because if you're not reading like Pat and I are, sometimes just hearing some of the nuggets that are found in other books will just perk your interest, that you might go buy this book or get it online and start to read it. But one of the things he talks about in here is how the way that we look at life is through our own lens.
Yes.
And our lens and the way we look at life is impacted by the way we think and our perceptions. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's reality. So he was talking about how he and his wife, one of their children, in his mind, they just looked at him as being, I don't want to say slow, but they just looked at him differently than they looked at their other children. And because their other children were more textbook type of kids. And what they realized was there was nothing wrong with their kid.
Yeah.
Their kid was fine. It was the way they were looking at their kid. It was the lens was tainted. And when they realized that, listen, this kid's never going to live up to the standards that we're setting, because we're setting standards for him that we've set for our other children. But that's not even fair, because he's not even like the other kids. And it was when they changed their perception and they changed their expectation for their son, all of a sudden their son started to blossom. And I really think that, I think we all have to think about that with ourselves, because I think sometimes the view that we have of ourselves isn't even accurate. We're sitting there thinking horrible things about ourselves, and you are not horrible. But it's because we're comparing it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then I think sometimes we do that to our children. And when you talked about one of the reasons why you are as strong as you are is because you had a strong mom. The impact that we have on our children, good and bad, is tremendous.
Yes.
So we have to believe in them.
Yeah.
No matter what, we have to believe in them. Now, do you have kids?
I have four-legged kids.
You have four-legged kids.
I had four-legged kids. I have a Chihuahua and a rescue dog named Dakota.
Wonderful.
So Chica and Dakota.
Yeah. So, but one thing that I think you do so well is you pour that positivity into everyone you're around. So how long ago did you leave IBM? And then what did you do after you left IBM?
So I left in 2002, and I was fortunate to have been hired by Lockheed Martin Aeronautics within 2 months. I was really, the timing was perfect, and I have to thank the network.
Yes, the network
Because
that you,
it's all about who you know.
right.
It's all about the relationships and who you know.
You know that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes,
And then
totally agree.
there's another little attachment to that says, and who knows you.
Yes.
So it's not who you know or what you know, it's who you know and who knows you. It's, you can pick up a phone and you can call them and say, listen, I need your help.
Yes.
And if they don't know who you are, they're not as willing to answer the phone. But every time Pat calls me, I answer the phone because I know you and I love you. So you did all that networking. You got into Lockheed Martin. How long were you there?
I was there 13 years.
13 years, because you're loyal.
Yes.
But then how did you tell everybody what you're doing now, and how did you get there, but why are you doing it?
You know, when I got laid off from IBM, I decided that'll be the last time that something like that ever happens to me, I am going to open a business and I will have a business on my back pocket so that when I am ready to launch or leave or another situation happens, it's a no sweat. I just say plan B. And that's what I did. I stepped into my plan B. So I immediately said, okay, I'm going to work for Lockheed Martin and I'm going to become a certified coach. And I started going to school in the evenings and earned my certification and started coaching women in the IT industry.
And I know that women, I know that's really your sweet spot. Your sweet spot are women, and your sweet spot are women specifically in the IT industry because that's what you know.
Yes.
And I mean, see, this is what I think is so amazing is each and every one of us, we have so much experience. The life experience, I think, is 10 times more valid than even book experience. And when you have life experience and you've been through something and you've learned something and you've conquered something and you've overcome something, you have valuable information within you that you can share. Yeah. And that's what you did. And so with your coaching business, you know, why did you want to do that? Why did you want to help other women in the IT area?
My passion, and I believe my mission, is moving women forward. And I entered an industry that was primarily male dominated. And I wanted to see women rise in that industry. And I decided that anyone who expressed any interest in moving forward, thinking bigger, being bolder, that I was going to be there by their side and ensuring and supporting them in reaching that specific goal that they had for themselves.
And you know, here's what's so important too, is you can't do it by yourself. No. I mean, you just can't. I don't even remember, I mean, I really do. I do not even remember when I realized that and accepted that absolute truth. And that's one of the things I say all the time is there are absolute truths in life. You can resist them, but it doesn't mean they're not true. So the sooner you just accept the absolute truths, and one of those absolute truths is you can't succeed alone, the quicker you will succeed and the happier you will be. So that's one of the things I think that is so special about coaches and mentors and consultants and advisors. You're going to somebody who has experience in whatever it is that you want to do. And for the most part, there's somebody that's done whatever it is that you want to do.
That's true. I agree.
And here's the other thing too, is when you do try to do things by yourself, a lot of times you get discouraged and then it's a lot easier sometimes to quit.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you started to work with these women, what were the transformations that you started to see because of just the commitment that you were making to them and they were making to you?
I shortened their learning curve, and I shortened their path to success because they were able to have someone who would guide them and share knowledge and lessons that they could avoid by just working with someone by their side. And it makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, it makes a huge
It
difference.
makes a huge difference.
Now, do you ever, I know you're going to say yes, but I'm going to ask, do you ever watch the TED Talks?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
So there was a TED Talk that I watched not too long ago, and it was a physician. And it was a physician who was an athlete through school, through, you know, all through growing up, high school, collegiate athlete, became a doctor. And he said, as a surgeon, he just started to think, why do I not have a coach? Why do I not have somebody that's coming into the operating room with me, that's watching me operate, that can look at me, because you can't see what you can't see and you don't know what you don't know. And believe me, we're not looking at everything. I mean, it just is. Yeah. And he said, because all my life as an athlete, I had a coach. I had somebody watching me, to your point, pulling out your potential that you didn't even realize you had, or you're just not operating at your full potential. You know, you know when you're operating at 100%. I mean, you know it.
Yes.
It's a lot easier to operate at 100% when you have somebody that you are being held accountable to.
Oh, that's the truth.
To say that you are going to operate at 100% all by yourself all the time. Listen, it's just not the
true.
case. It's just not the case. I mean, I know from my personal experience. And here's the other thing about a coach or a consultant or somebody that you're working with. When you're paying money to somebody, you don't want to waste that money.
You're vested.
Yeah, you're like, hold on a second, I don't want to waste this money. So you work a little bit harder, obviously. But on this TED Talk, so this surgeon said he went to another surgeon that had more experience than he had had. And he said it totally changed his practice. Not only did he improve greatly as a surgeon, but the number of his mistakes went down, the number of infections in his client and his patients went down, his confidence increased, and he just said that's when he realized if you want to live at your fullest potential and you want to operate at your fullest potential with anything and everything that you do, you truly do need to be held accountable by someone. You need that team.
Yes.
So tell us some of the things that you do in your practice.
One of the things in the technical and engineering industry is that we make a lot of decisions from the neck up. Mm-hmm. And corporate America in that industry does not honor your spirit. It doesn't honor your heart. It doesn't honor your intuition. And that is all of who you are. And I work with women and I teach them, you are all of these three things and you operate from here. That's where you make your decisions.
I mean, it's right before the show we were talking about how, you really are a spiritual person. Mm-hmm. And you can, I'm really big into energy. And so I don't know about y'all out there, but I'm big into energy. And when you meet someone, you feel their energy. Mm-hmm. Are they positive? Are they upbeat? Are they doom and gloom? And you can feel that.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the most endearing things about you is you just have such a positive energy source. I mean, you really are. And now that I know that you had such a strong mother, I'm sure that you've been that way your whole life. Mm-hmm. So tell us, what has that spirituality, how has that impacted you?
For me, I go within to make my decisions. And I really trust that I know the answer and that the answers are all right here. And I just have to open myself up and hear my higher self actually give me the answer. So the trust that I have in myself is unbelievable. The alignment when I make my decisions, move forward in my business. When you are aligned, spirit, heart, and intuition, you can't make a mistake going forward because you are so aligned in what you do. And when I trust that and I'm aligned, I just know that I'm taking the right steps and I move forward.
And that's so powerful because one of my personal sayings is life is like a maze. So you've got one right way in and you've got one right way out. And when you hit a wall, it's because you're not in alignment.
Yes.
You're not being congruent. You're not being true to yourself. But what you said I thought was beautiful, which is when you trust yourself 100% and you know that the answers are right there waiting for you, and if you hit the wall, that's okay. That's a good thing. When you hit the wall, it's a good thing because it's redirecting you to the path that you're supposed to be on. And I'm really big. In fact, this is one of my personal rules. If I'm working with someone, it's one of my personal rules for myself, but also if I'm working with someone, you cannot beat yourself up. You can't beat yourself up. Listen, life is about learning, and you can't learn if you don't make mistakes. So if you are going to learn and you're going to grow and you're going to succeed, you're going to have to stumble and you're going to have to make some mistakes and you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to brush yourself off. But also, I think sometimes those mistakes not only grow us as people, but it also puts us in the direction to meet the people that we need to meet to help us grow even further.
Yes.
And so along your journey, who are some of the people that you've met that have become, besides Zig Ziglar, because he's amazing.
He's amazing.
But what are some of your other mentors that you've come across that have just been invaluable to your growth?
The current coach that I'm working with is Pamela Slim, and she's very spiritual too. So I connect with coaches who are also aligned within themselves. And they have made a biggest difference. And one of the things that I've learned a lot from Pam is progress, not perfection.
That's right.
Progress, not perfection. And when you have a coach that reminds you of that, that is amazing. I really have appreciated that. And as a retreat leader, I've had some amazing retreat coaches like Darla Ledoux, Helene Van Manen, who have really brought the best in me and have seen the potential that I couldn't see in myself.
Okay, we got to show the picture of you out on the ranch because I love this picture. This picture, but what I love about this, and we talked about it a little bit before the show, is this is you in total alignment and congruency. You're in a place that you love. You can see that happiness coming out. I mean, it's a gorgeous picture, but what is so special to you about the outdoors?
I met my husband at IBM, and he is what I call an animal whisperer. I married old MacDonald, had a farm, and he actually took a city girl, brought her into the ranch environment, and really transformed my life. And I can say that when you say mentors, the animals were my mentors. They were my teachers. Just taking care of them and being fully present in caring for them taught me a lot about life. It taught me about self-awareness. It taught me about being observant and how love changes.
Right.
And yes.
I love it that you say that because I think sometimes people do think that your biggest lessons are learned by other people.
Yeah.
You learn those lessons, but you can have such deep lessons through the experiences that you've had. And I know one of the experiences that I had just this summer, and I know this is going to sound, crazy, but it was so impactful to me, was just watering flowers. So I am not the green thumb by any means. That's not been who I have been in the past. But we had put our house up for sale, and we were actually, we talked about that too because both Pat and I are doing the same thing here, building a new house.
Isn't that what a correlation to building a big and bold business.
Yes. Honestly.
Yes.
But I knew that we were putting our house up on the market, so we got these beautiful flowers to sell our home. And I had to keep these flowers alive. So every morning I would get up and I would water the flowers. And every morning I'd get up and water the flowers, and I would water the flowers. And there were a couple of mornings, I'm not going to lie, that I had some things that I had to do. And I was running late, so I didn't get to water the flowers. And I would come home and the flowers were drooping. And I started to realize that that's how we are as individuals, that daily we have to be watering and feeding our souls daily. And we have to look forward to it, and we have to be excited about it. And when you see the beautiful blooming flowers and how beautiful it was, and realizing it was because I made that commitment, I was disciplined, I did that, it just made me think of everything in life. And that's really everything in life. It's not what you do once a week, it's what you're doing every day. You have to be doing what you know to be true every day to make the big impacts in your life.
It's true. I'm a big proponent of having rituals.
Yes, you have to have
You
rituals.
have to have morning rituals.
You do.
And that's really important because they set the tone of your day in the morning.
They really
right?
do.
Rituals set your tone of the day. You can't control what happens in the middle of the day, but you sure as heck can control how your day begins and how your day ends.
It's so true,
Yes.
Pat. That is so true, and I love that. And you know what? We're going to jump to the Ask Jen's question because I think a lot of things that we're talking about right now, it applies. And the Ask Jen's question is something that we do every podcast. And I beg you that if you have a question, if you're struggling with something, if you just want to hear our guests and our points of view, share. If you have got somebody that needs help, let us know. But this question is actually a question, an Ask Jen's that comes from Pat's network. And here is the question. What's one self-care tip? And to me, one of the most important self-care tips that you can do is plan your tomorrow before tomorrow begins. And as we just heard, it's so important that you realize the beginning of the day, your rituals, whether it's prayer, meditation, exercise, reading, whatever it may be, it's your time. So start the day with your time that's going to put you in the right frame of mind to have the most success and happiness throughout the day.
Yes, definitely.
What do you think, Pat?
I agree that if I were to give one tip, what is a self-care tip that I would give you is I would start with meditation. It is so important to start your day in silence, even if it's just 1 minute. Being able to ground yourself, connect with yourself, your spirit, your intuition, and your heart, and just allow yourself to hear the whispers that are being given to you all the time. All the time. And that silence and that meditation will calms you down, it grounds you, it empowers you. You walk through your day very confident because you know that through the meditation and grounding stuff, you can handle anything that comes your way.
You know, meditation truly is life-changing.
It is.
How long have you been meditating?
Many, many years.
How did you stumble into it? How did you stumble into it?
I stumbled into it because I was so curious about growing spiritually.
Right.
That even, when I was young in college, I started really listening to talks, reading books, and meditation was a constant practice.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And nowadays, it's even more popular.
Well, when you go deep into successful people, now I'm not talking about corporate America, okay? I'm talking about entrepreneurs, all right? Because corporate America and the world of entrepreneurship, they're two different animals. But in like you said, when you were at IBM, corporate America, people are making decisions with their head. But when you get into the entrepreneurial space, people realize to get to your fullest potential, you have to meditate. I mean, it is such a common practice by successful people. And what I want to know is, when you started with your meditation, did you read a book? Did you go to somebody and they taught you how to do it? Did you listen to guided, or did you, how did that evolve? And because I think a lot of people, to your point, they know it's important, they hear about it, but they don't know how to start.
Yes. So I picked it up from books, definitely picked it up from books, and grew my knowledge of meditation by just listening to YouTube. There's a lot of things on YouTube.
A lot of things.
Yes, there's a lot of guided meditations. And because I'm such a curious person, I started in silence first, and then I said, well, let me see what it feels like if somebody else guides me through the meditation. And I just started experimenting.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people will start, is in silence, because you think that's what meditation is. And there is. And I think it's important to say there's no right or wrong way.
Correct.
It's just what it works for you. And And I think, you've got some really neat things that you're working on. And I would assume that meditation is part of some of these new programs, but you've got some really just powerful things that you're working on to help transform people's lives. So what do we have in the hopper that we can be excited about?
Ooh, all right. So I have a retreat in April 30th through May 3rd. It's called Divine Feminine Retreat. And it is for women who see themselves as a spiritual being having a human experience and want a community where they can have those discussions and grow spiritually and pour into other women just as well. Because what I have learned is that if you want to have a big, bold business, your spirituality has to be at the same level. It is critical that your spiritual growth be at that level. And this retreat, it's going to be held in Arlington. It's for 7 women. It's very comfy and cozy. And you'll come in connecting to your higher self, having all kinds of spiritual tools that will allow you to raise your level of consciousness. And raising your consciousness raises the consciousness of the world, of the planet. And I'd love to have you there.
I love that you keep it at 7 because that's very intimate, and it allows everybody that's there to really just be completely raw and authentic and genuine.
Yes.
And I know that there are so many people that are out there that want that experience. And sometimes you feel like you're the only one, and everybody around you is not. We talked about how important it is that you really are the sum of the 5 people that you associate with the most.
Exactly. And what I have found in the corporate arena and in the women that I run into that are in the IT industry is that many of them are spiritual, but they don't bring it out because they don't want to be seen as a woo.
Right.
And therefore they hide it. And in conversation, I start, bringing out the conversation of, what do you read? Oh, by the way, I'm reading Ask and It Shall Be Given by Esther Hicks.
Right.
Oh, I love that book. And then I know. I said, how would you like to be a part of a community where we talk about spiritual growth and those fascinating books?
I love it.
And they say, I've been looking for that group.
Right, that's right.
I've been
because
looking for that
people
group.
are looking for that. So tell me some of your favorite books.
Well, Ask and It Shall Be Given is definitely one.
Okay, because
follow
I haven't
Esther
read
Hicks.
that, and I've got to
Oh, my
read it
God,
now.
that is-
I mean, that's going to be
That
next
is-
month.
Yeah, that's a really good book. The other one is it's a book called Spiritual Growth, and I can't remember the name of the author right now. In fact, I'm using that book in a Divine Mastermind that I study.
Have you read any of Gary Zukav's
Yes,
stuff? I
absolutely.
love Gary
Absolutely,
Zukov.
yeah.
I love, to me, and we read Gary Zukav's book, Seed of the Soul,
Yes.
a couple of months ago. And
Oh, wow,
to
that's
me, it's so important because what I loved about that book was how he talked about your soul has been forever, been alive forever. Your personality began at birth.
Right.
And when you realize you can operate from your soul, which is your highest level, or you can operate from your personality, which is not. And everything in life, when you go right down to it, it's either comes from a place of love or it comes from a place of fear. And your soul is love. And your personality is fear. And when you start to realize that, you do have to talk to some people because you can't be reading all this by yourself. You've got to connect. So, we talked about how we met through eWoman Network. How did you decide to get in to that organization? And then not only did she just get into eWoman Network, which is a phenomenal platform and organization, you jumped right into the pool to the highest platinum level.
I'm at a point in my business where where I'm aware that I am the sum of the 5 people that I hang around with the most. And if I'm to grow my business and really think big and grow big, the 5 people that I hang around with has to expand and elevate. And so that means that I still love the people that I hang around with. I love them. And I expand to a level of women who are really very successful and are doing what I want to be doing.
Right.
And E-Women's Network is that group, and more importantly, platinum.
I know. Here's a
There,
picture.
oh my
Listen,
God.
here's a picture of you on the stage there at eWomen Network, giving a presentation, looking amazing, doing video work, becoming the person that you were meant to become to bless so many people. And I love that picture because you just look so happy. You just look so happy. And you've got some really amazing things that you're doing. You've got a book coming out soon.
I do.
Okay, and I love tell everybody the title of this book.
My book is called Stop for a Hot Dog.
Isn't it? I love
Stop
that.
for a Hot Dog. 31 soulful practices for women entrepreneurs.
Okay, so how did you come up with that title, Pat?
Okay. So it releases January of 2020.
Right.
And the way that I came up with that is one of my stories in that book is about how when I was in high school, I would go with my sister and my cousins shopping downtown El Paso. And we would meet there and we would go and try on clothes and go buy records and buy shoes. But at the end of the day, we would go to Coney Island and we would go and stop and have a hot dog. And when we ordered our hot dog, we would just talk about, oh, I really love that dress that you bought. And wasn't it interesting that we ran into Mary while we were there? And we would reminisce the day. And we would just pause and just enjoy that moment. And this is so important for women, for us to be able to pause. And so I said, that's what I'm going to call my book. Stop for a hot dog.
I love it. I love it. So here's what you've got to make sure you connect with Pat. And I want to make sure that we have the offer. Now,
Yes.
not every one of my guests, but I love it when my guests will do this. If you are watching this live, if you're watching on replay, and we don't care if you watch it 2 years from now, we want to extend an offer. And this is an amazing offer. So please share that offer.
Yes. My offer is an e-guide that is called 5 Steps to Scaling Your Business Consciously. And it is available to anyone that's listening by going to buildittoscale.com.
And there it is. So this is your beautiful website. We're going to make sure that on all of our information that we've got your information because we want people to be able to get in touch with you because you are a master at scaling your business. And I'll tell you, I know the time flies because and I don't even think we're going to be able to do our Laughter is the Best Medicine video, but we're going to save it for next week. Yes. And when we play it next week, I'm going to give you the credit because Pat's the one that picked it. It's hysterical. But real quickly, we got 1 minute. What do you think is the most important thing for people to know about scaling their business?
What's important is that you don't forget why you're doing it, and that the why resonates with your heart, with your spirit, and with your intuition. Because when you scale and you're aligned with the reason why you're doing it, you can't go wrong.
Right. And I think that's the best way to end today, Pat, because you will quit on a job, but you will not quit on your calling.
Yeah.
And that's really when you know what your why is and you're aligned with who you are and your purpose, you are never going to stop. Right. So please, if you've enjoyed this show, share it. We love you, Pat. Thank you so much for coming on. And if there's a topic or if you'd like to come on the show or if there's an ask question, whatever we can do to help make you be bigger and bolder and become the best version of you, we'd love to do that. So until we meet again next Monday at 2 p.m. Central, be big, be bold, and most importantly, be you. Bye-bye.